It's 2017, and we're reaching a rather unique point in sim racing. I feel that we are entering the new generation of sim racing. However, it's being handled in a rather unique fashion. Instead of seeing us going from one sim racing title to another, we are seeing these titles evolving and growing and reaching a point where we could say they are essentially a different title than they were a few years ago. We're seeing a long-awaited GTR 3 release where it will be running on Unreal Engine 4, and then those upgrades will trickle down to race room racing experience. iRacing is going to be seeing another evolutionary shift when they roll out dirt racing later this month. With all of these major improvements and evolutions, there is one very important element of sim racing that is going to be relatively tossed by the wayside, and it's one of the unsung heroes of sim racing history. So I wanted to spend a little time talking about the ISIMotor Engine. Now, the ISIMotor might not be a household name, but it powers a lot of our sim racing titles that you might not realize. Fun fact, did you know that the ISIMotor Engine actually stretched back nearly 20 years, all the way back to 1999 Sports Car GT? This video game engine really played an incremental factor into shaping how we saw sim racing. Sports Car GT was the first title to really show off the game engine in 1999, and then was really popularized by F1 Challenge 99-02, which was basically almost seen as a spiritual predecessor to R Factor. F1 Challenge was where a lot of modding teams such as CTDP and a pre-developer Simbin actually gained their footing with tweaking the engine. ImSpace Incorporated also worked on a couple NASCAR titles, notably NASCAR Thunder 2003 and 2004, before they were given the axe by Electronic Arts. Another fun fact is that the ISIMotor Engine was still retained in part for NASCAR Sim Racing, which was Electronic Arts' final NASCAR game for the PC. Moving on, ISI went the independent route and they decided to develop R Factor, which was a very bare bones racing simulator. And if that was the way it was left out of the box, then we likely wouldn't have been talking about it 12 years later. Thankfully, ISI made R Factor with the modding in mind, and the modders really bit onto it. There are thousands of cars, thousands of tracks available, and that really breathed the life into this sim. You could race almost anything you could think of, ranging from go-karts to Formula One to NASCAR to monster trucks, and there was even a pod racer mod in development, but that was unfortunately scrapped. There was almost anything you could think of in this sim. But the hallmark of the ISI engine wasn't just this racing sim. Also, it was the license to the video game engine and what they did with external developers. Even before R Factor was released with the ISIMotor 2 engine, we saw the developer Simbin develop GTR and GTR 2, which were developed with the ISIMotor 1 engine, which powered F1 Challenge and other previous titles. Once R Factor dropped with the ISIMotor 2 engine, we got to see titles such as GT Legends, Race 07, GTR Evolution, and Race Room Racing Experience from Simbin before the original Simbin folded and became Sector 3 Studios. More recently of note, we have Reiza Studios, who developed Game Stock Car, Game Formula Truck, and Automobilista, all three of them powered by the ISIMotor 2 engine. Now, as time passed on, it was becoming apparent that the ISIMotor 2 engine was getting a little long in the tooth. So, ImSpace Incorporated started working on its successor, the ISIMotor 2.5 engine and R Factor 2. Now, that was announced back in 2010, 7 years ago. And on initial impressions, it was really ahead of its time. We were seeing the dynamic tire model with flat spotting and visible wear. We were seeing the dynamic weather We were seeing all of these elements. We were seeing rubber being laid on the track. And all of this was coming soon. However, we were kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And then rFactor 2 launched in a beta in 2012. And it didn't really sit well with a lot of racers. Back in 2012, we were already moving up to DirectX 10 and a DirectX 11, but rFactor 2 was stuck on DirectX 9, which I'm not a stickler for graphics, but it really didn't perform well with modern systems. DirectX 9, which was around in 2005, was really struggling to keep up with modern technology. So you were getting performance optimization issues. You were getting factors such as the frame rate staying inconsistent. You were having maximum graphics card usage for relatively mediocre performance. And that wasn't a solid trade-off that people were wanting when there were engines such as iRacing's engine, which were optimized pretty beautifully, and you were able to get solid racing out of it. However, there is still hope for rFactor 2. We're seeing the new founded Studio 397 coming to rFactor 2's aid, and we are seeing bright lights at the end of this tunnel. We are seeing this new graphics engine. We're seeing these new improvements. We're seeing this becoming a more full-featured title. Now, it remains to be seen if that will really be able to compete with the Assetto Corsas, the iRacings, the Project Cars in terms of community engagement and racing and all of that content, but at least we have something to be optimistic about. Now, that was an extremely long tangent, and all this is to say that we are seeing the ISIMotor engine dying off in a sense, and we're seeing greater things coming from it. Simbin and Sector 3, known for almost exclusively using the ISIMotor engine in their titles, has announced they're going to a new title with a new engine. Reiza Studios, who is known for using the ISIMotor engine, has announced that in 2017, they're going to a new engine with a new title. Studio 397, the people who took over from the inventors of the ISIMotor engine, are bringing a new chapter to the sim that is sort of marking a departure from where the engine was before. So we are seeing all these new exciting developments, and while I do value what ISIMotor has done, I guess what I mean to say is there really is a time to put this piece of sim racing history to rest. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on what this next chapter of sim racing is going to bring. Do you think that it is good that we're moving away from the ISIMotor engine? Let us know. Also, if you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below and help keep us on track. Also, check out simracingpaddock.com and check out our forums and join the community. For Sim Racing Paddock, I'm William Marsh, and you have a great rest of your day.